Good morning, welcome to Furry and Spoilt. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to help a dog that is scared of people. And I mean all people. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to tell you how I help this particular dog. And then I'm going to tell you my thought process behind it. Because you could then adapt that to dealing with helping any nervous dog with any situation really. So this happened about 17 years ago. And I've used this way of helping dogs many times since. So I had only just really, didn't own a dog at this point. It's before I owned dogs. And I'd only just really started to really get into dog psychology. And this was kind of the thing that sort of triggered it for me and then went on to be a lifetime of I'm just obsessed with dog psychology and how it all works. So I worked in an office then, and the daughter of the owner worked there as well. And she had a little wire-haired dachshund. And he was so nervous of people that he was biting people really quite bad. And so he had nervous aggression. And during the day, he stayed at the lady's mum's house. And they couldn't take it anymore. He was so bad. And so they said to the lady, if he, he's just got so bad that he's going to have to be rehomed at the weekend. And they'd arranged for someone to come and get him and pick him up at the weekend. And the lady was just absolutely, really terribly upset about this, which you can completely understand. But you can understand it from her mum's point of view. She's looking after this dog that's biting everyone. So, So she said, the lady in the office said, I'm thinking that I'm going to bring him into work. This, on paper, was a terrible idea. Because, one of my ladies that worked for me, she actually started crying. She burst into tears because she had such a fear of dogs. And then we're an IT consultant, and we had a lot of our IT developers were brought over from different places in the world because they were the best in the world. So we had them from Sri Lanka and India and Pakistan and all over the place. And they naturally were just not that familiar with dogs and actually really quite nervous about them. And then we had the whole language barrier. So it was just about the worst situation that you could bring a dog into. But, what was the option? So she brought him in and she said, well, I'm going to bring him in his crate and put him in his crate. Now, if you watch my videos, you will know how strongly I hate to see dogs in crates. Dog crates cause nothing but behavioural problems. I hate them. I absolutely hate them. And I just instinctively knew that putting the dog in the cage, in the corner, was just making the situation so much worse. But when he was out of the crate, he was snarling and growling and he did actually bite somebody. And I just knew instinctively that it really wasn't that complicated. I didn't know why he was so scared of people, but clearly something had happened and he really didn't like people. And so I just instinctively knew that I had to make it so that he did like people. So the way the office was planned was we had like a block down our end. There was like a block of desks, and at the back of the block of desks were all my whiteboards, and I really needed these all the time. I was constantly writing on them. They were very important to function in my team. And this little dog, his mum sat right by the whiteboards. And I couldn't get round to my whiteboards because he was snarling at me and snapping and jumping up trying to get me, and really scared. So I went home, and you've got to remember, this is before me and dogs. This is like 17 years ago. It's before me and dogs, before I got so involved with training and behaviour and all of that. Way before that. So I just thought to myself, well, surely it's very simple. I just need to teach him that he likes me. So I'm going to tell you what I did, and then I'm going to talk to you about why I did it, just in case you haven't got time to watch the whole video. It's very simple. So I got treats. Back then, right in the beginning, my criteria was still the same as it is now. They have to break into lots of tiny little pieces so that you can give a lot to them without overfilling the dog. They have to smell strongly. And that was the criteria. And so I did. And I actually don't quote me on this, but I think I was using Sizzlers right back then. I'm still using them to this day. And I made a trail from him all the way around the block of desks to me. And he was very interested in these treats, very interested in them. What he was doing was he would take the first few treats that meant he didn't have to come round to me. But as soon as he had to turn the corner and get in the line of going to my desk, I moved like other members of staff out the way, so nobody was at risk. So it was just me and him. So it was his mum, big block of desks, and me. Everybody else I'd moved up the other end of the office. So when he got round the corner, so he was in line with me, so it was a few desks wide, he'd be growling at me and snarling at me, and if I moved, he would lunge, and it was really bad. But I was like, no, if you want the rest of these treats, you have got to come to me. You are going to have to walk from you're going to have to get to me. You're just going to have to. I'm not putting them near you. I'm not helping you out here. You're going to have to get to me. And it took him about 3 or 4 days. But eventually he came and got the treat that was right next to me. However, he was snarling, he was growling. If I dared to move, I think he would have had me. But it worked. And then as time went on, and I do mean time, we're talking weeks here, 2, 3, 4 weeks maybe, he got to the point where he would just eat all the treats up and he wouldn't growl at me or anything. Just eat all the treats, fine. And then we got to the point where he would wait for me to make the line of treats. And then we built and we built and we built on that. And we got to the point where me and that dog, we had a bond. We had a very strong bond. He was gorgeous, a very strong bond. He'd come running up to me in the mornings to say hello. He'd sit on my lap while I was working. He'd plonk himself under my desk. I would just be feeding him the treats from the packet under the desk. He didn't need no trail. And we got very tight, me and that little dog. But the problem was all the other people in the office. Okay, so I'd sorted me out. We were fine. We were bonded, me and this little dog. But what wasn't fine was the other people in the office. So the English people in the office were quite scared of him, understandably, because they'd seen he lunges and growls and snarls and everything. And then we had a lot of people in the office, like I said, who were from other countries. So we had a language barrier and they just naturally weren't comfortable with dogs. And we had to sort this out because where we were sitting, the kitchen was right by us. We had to go through a couple of doors, but you had to go through there to get to the kitchen. And every time one of them came down, we had the risk that someone was going to get bitten. So it absolutely had to be sorted out. The problem I had was that the people weren't really that interested in sorting it out. They didn't come here to do dog training. They were IT developers. And that's completely understandable. And I completely understand that. Completely get it. They were not there to do that, they weren't. As it happened, it sparked something in me and I went on to be a bit crazy about dogs. But, and understandably, no judgment there at all. But this dog belonged to the owner's daughter. You're kind of going to have, they kind of had to make it work. So I talked to them all and I was like, look, I've sorted him out with me and I completely trust him. And I used to pick him up and carry him down there to show them what I had done with him. And actually, he was a gorgeous little boy. He was just scared. So I explained to them that he was just scared. And if we can just teach him, he'll be all right. So I used to make these trails from my desk down to their end of the office. So it wasn't that far, but, a little bit, down to their end of the office. And so he went through the same process. He'd take a treat, snarl at everyone, growl at everyone. And I reassured everybody that if nobody moved, he would just be focused on the treats and that I was there and I was watching him closely and I understood his body language. And if at any point I thought anything was going to go wrong, I'd be there. Luckily, they trusted me because they'd seen what I'd done with him and it was fine. But it was the same process. So for a couple of weeks, he'd go down the line of treats, snarling, growling the whole way, all the way. Eventually got to the point where he would... So to start with, I sat down the other end of the office. So he was actually walking towards me. Then I stopped sitting there and I sat back at my desk and he had to walk away from me into the end of the office where there were people he was scared of. So that was really brave of him. So that was a big ask. And he did it. And we got to the point where he would go and get the treats and it was fine. We never got to the point where people would particularly were stroking him and stuff, that's fine. I wasn't asking anybody to do that. I wasn't asking that. All I was asking was that this little dog wouldn't growl or bark at anybody if they came up to our end of the office. And he actually got to the point where he would wander around down their end of the office, have a sniff around. Everybody was nice and relaxed with him because they'd seen that he didn't mean anybody any harm. He was just scared. I kept emphasising that he's only doing it because he's scared. And so they found empathy, and you know, they were empathetic with him, and it was fine. But he did get to the point where he would just wander around down their end of the office, have a sniff around. No problem at all. They could come and go up to the kitchen. There were no problems at all with him. He was a really, really nice dog. And I think some of them actually would have liked to have said hello to him more. But they didn't. But he, because he had long ears, they often used to get bent back. So you have to put his ears back for him. And I did a few times see different people go, oh, your ear's bent, and go and put his ear back for him. And I never made a big deal of it, and I never did. Some people did ask if they could have some treats on their desk, and they did, and they would. Nobody actually gave him the treat, but they would throw the treat for him on the floor just by their desk. And that's something that I would highly recommend. If you've got somebody that's really nervous of dogs, throwing the treat is really good, because what it does is it actually makes the dog go away from the person. So if the person is unsure about the dog, it makes the dog go away from the person, but it teaches the dog that the person is really nice and that they've got treats and they do really good things. So that's a really good thing to do, and I've used that a lot. So with the people down the other end of the office who were willing, they would have treats on their desk and then throw the treat onto the floor. So Hamish would go and get it, but the person didn't have to have the interaction with them. Till you can completely trust the dog and you are really confident that the person involved knows what they're doing, that's a really good thing to do. The other problem we had was that we had a lady who used to come once a week, and she used to water the plants, and she was like from a company, and she used to come water the plants and change them if they were dying and stuff like that. The problem with her was that we never knew when she was coming, and she used to have to walk around the whole office, everywhere, the whole building. So that was kind of like a bit of a nightmare for us, really, because that was exactly what we didn't need. So I had a chat with her. Luckily, she was a nice, friendly lady. Again, she wasn't really a dog person, but very friendly and understood our predicament. And, you know, it was kind of like, if you don't help us out here, you know, this isn't going to work, because, you know, like I said, it was the owner of the company. It was his daughter. So this wasn't like, obviously, if this was a normal workplace, there is no way on this earth this would be allowed to happen. But, you know, she was a daughter, and that's how it was. The dog was coming, like it or lump it. And so the plant lady, I said to her, right, if I leave treats on the reception, when you come in, pick up the bag of treats and throw them at Hamish, one at a time. So again, I wasn't asking her to interact with him. I wasn't asking her to learn how to be with dogs, nothing like that. That was not what she was there for. I wasn't asking her to do that. But I was asking her again, throw the treats, throw the treat away. So we achieved that the little dog then went away from the lady. And also that the little dog learned, so I'm trying not to use names here because I've got no permission. I just don't know if it's okay to talk about this or not. So I don't know, but I'm sure it's okay to talk about it. I'm absolutely sure it is, but I'm not using names. Yeah, and so the plant lady used to throw the treat. So she'd come in and she'd throw him a treat. And so he learned that because in the beginning when she first came, because she was carrying all like water bottles and dusters and plant food and all the stuff, he wasn't, because we didn't let it happen, but he wanted to be very aggressive towards her. He was very scared of her. And he got to the point where when she came, he was excited, and he would like go to her and wait for the treat to be thrown. But what was nice was that he didn't have to go right up to him, and so it kept the distance nicely, and so it kept everything nice. So that was really successful, and I've used that principle so many times since with dogs. I just want to go through with you what was going through in my mind and what I needed to achieve with that. And so that was 17 years ago, and actually I haven't changed my mind about any of it. I was thinking about what I was thinking about at the time, and it's incredible how clear it is to me. I remember it like it was yesterday. And so I just want to go through those, because I think if you've got a nervous dog that's dealing with any situation, you could adapt the principles. So the first thing that I thought then was, when I was watching this little dog in the cage, I remember thinking, he's got feelings and he's got emotions. And that has carried me through my whole time with dogs. Dogs have feelings and they have emotions. All animals do. But dogs have feelings and they have emotions. They feel a whole range of feelings, and fear and being scared and unsure. They also, I'm always going on this channel about energy. They feel stuff, and I think they feel it stronger than we do because they don't have language like we do. So it's all comes from energy and that kind of thing. So my first thought was, okay, well, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason was, he is really, really scared of people. So scared that if one comes near him, he thinks he's going to get hurt, and so he will bite. And I've just got to teach him that that's not the case. I've just got to teach him that people are nice. So what I knew was that anything I tried to do to help him, I had to make sure that it never at any point went wrong, and that at any point he never, ever, ever had a reason to be scared of me or anybody else in the office. Now, I couldn't vouch for the rest of his life because I never saw him outside the office. But I had to make sure that in the office, nobody ever scared him. There was never any reason ever to not trust anybody in that office. That office was his utter and complete safe place. And I completely achieved that. He used towards like when he really got better, we had a big boardroom where we had board meetings. So we'd have these board meetings and we'd be sat there and there'd be all the directors and everyone be sat there. He'd trot in behind me and I'd pop him on my lap and he'd climb up onto the table and lie not full length because he was only little. He'd lie on his back and just lie there for everybody to do belly rubs. Now, I know how unprofessional this sounds, but you've got to remember, he was the dog of the owner's daughter. So that dog could, do whatever he wanted. And so he would lie on the middle of the table and we'd be giving him belly rubs. I mean, he really, how he got so, it was incredible thing. But I just had to make sure that he never, ever experienced anything bad. So like we had new members of staff, anything like that, I had to make sure, I just had to be aware all the time that there were he was never put in any situation where it went wrong because we'd gone so far forward and I had to make sure that never, ever went wrong. And it didn't. It didn't. I've got to give praise to every single person in that office. Absolutely superb. Not one of them needed to have dealt with that situation. And they did. And it was superb. And when, it was really, really superb. And I don't think the other people there really understood how much of an impression and how much they changed that dog's life, but they completely did. So when you are doing anything with any dog, but certainly nervous dogs, really think through your process and think through where it could go wrong, because one thing goes wrong. Like, let's say, for instance, when I had the trail going from him to me, when he was coming to get it, if I'd got up and gone to him, that could have put him right back. Worse still, he could have bitten me and then we would have been put even further back. So I knew that I was going to put the trail down and I knew I wasn't going to look at him. I used to sideways glance because I wanted to have a look at what he was doing, but I didn't look at him, I didn't talk to him, I didn't do anything. Just let him deal with it on his own. So think through what you're going to do. Make sure there's nothing in the process that can go wrong. Be really clear on what you're going to do. And I was clear on so I knew he was going to growl at me. I knew all of that. And so I was just really clear in my head. I'm just going to sit here. It doesn't matter what he does. I'm going to completely ignore him. I knew he wouldn't lunge at me because I had the protection of my chair. So the way I was sat meant that if he had lunged at me, the chair was there. He wouldn't have been able to get me. So I knew that no matter what he did, I wasn't going to react. It was just him and the treats. I just happened to be sat there. So really, really think through that and make sure that it can't go wrong. If you've got other people involved, then you need to really talk to them. Remember, if they're involved and they didn't want to be involved, it just happens to be where they are, really emphasise the fact that the dog is scared. He's not nasty and aggressive. He's scared. And he is aggressive, but he's aggressive because he's scared. Really try and get into their empathetic side so that they feel sorry for him. And, really push that. He's like this because he's scared. And like I said, throw the treat. If they are then got to get involved, if they just have to because they just have to, and they don't. The thing is, I think actually I was in a very lucky situation because nobody massively wanted to get involved. It actually made my life much easier, because if people had wanted to get involved and say hello to him and all of that, it would have been actually awful for me, because the people would have been unpredictable, and that would have been really bad. As it was, they all did. They were all doing exactly what I asked them to do. If people had wanted to get involved, that would have made that situation a lot harder. So don't encourage people to get involved. But you can get the dog to like the people by the person throwing a treat away from them. It's such an effective thing to do, because the dog hasn't got the pressure of having to go and say hello to the person. The person hasn't got the risk of messing it up. Because remember, if that person's got a nervous energy, that dog's going to feed off that. So if the person is just throwing the treat away from them, towards the dog and away from them, then their energy, it does matter, but it's not going to have such an effect. So that was the other thing, to make absolutely sure that nothing goes wrong. The other thing is that use their nose. I didn't understand then. You're all right, darling. I didn't understand then how much dogs rely on their nose. I didn't know. And, you know, like I said, hadn't owned a dog 17 years ago. I didn't know. But I just sort of knew. I don't know, just instinctive. I guess some people are just born, you know, instinctive to dogs. I don't know. But I just knew to use a smelly treat and to use his nose. And, you know, obviously now we all know that the dog's nose is their biggest thing. If you can engage a dog's nose, and, you know, you'll see this with your own dog. If you're out on a walk and they've got their nose stuck in a bush and something really stinky and awful is in there, it's hard to get their attention because they're so engrossed in what's going on. And that's a really good thing with a nervous dog. If you can engage their nose, then their brain is so engrossed in that it's not going to be engaged with other things. And just in case you don't know, this is how it was explained to me once, and I just thought this was such a great way. And over the years, I've seen it absolutely, you know, over and over again. If you take an A4 piece of paper and imagine that one tiny dot in the corner is how much we smell. Dogs can smell the whole piece of paper. So their noses are absolutely incredible. And so if you've got a nervous dog, to engage it with a smelly treat is really going to help switch the other parts of their brain off. Something else is, so Humps here, if you know my channel, you know all about him. He's been with us for 8 months, and he is from the South Korean meat trade. I'm not going to discuss it because it's horrendous. If you want to know about the South Korean dog meat trade, Google it. But I warn you, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's horrific. He came from there, and so obviously it's no surprise that he has nervous aggression, terrible nervous aggression. And he is doing so well, I can't tell you. So well. Really, really well. Harry's bought me a toy here. Thank you, darling. He's doing incredibly well. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud with what he's achieved. And yeah, he has nervous aggression, and he has bitten a few people, and he came from Korea, and then he got moved around a whole load of homes because people couldn't cope with him. He's had a really tough life, but he's doing really, really well now. Everybody's having a lick of their paw. He's doing really, really well now. Really well. We've still got so far to go. So far to go. But he's doing really, really well. But the point I will make is patience. None of the stuff that I achieved with that little dog in that office happened overnight. It took weeks. And with Humps here, so we've had him for 8 months now, nearly 9 months. And it's a slow process. And you have to go really, really slowly. You can't rush it. You just can't rush it. You're going to get some dogs like Harry here who aren't phased. You're not phased by life, are you? He's relaxed as anything. But when we first got him, so he came from an abuse case as well. When we first got him, he used to lunge at people and want to bite people. Didn't you, sweetheart? You did. Used to bark really bad at people. Now, I couldn't care less. He's relaxed as anything. Nice, don't you, darling? Yeah, now you're so relaxed. But Humps, I just showed you, you know, we're going through the process with him now, and you've got to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. Absolutely do not get frustrated. And with everything, whenever you're working with any dog, don't do it if you're in a bad mood or you're frustrated. You can't do anything with dogs if you're in that kind of mood. And it's one of the reasons I love dogs so much, because you have to be calm and relaxed around them. You just have to be, or else it isn't going to work. And so they taught me that in my life, to always be calm and relaxed. But you must be patient with them. So have your plan put in place, what you're going to do. Obviously that will need adjusting from time to time, but have your plan in place, but stay very calm, very relaxed. You mustn't get impatient with them. Be really calm with them, very relaxed, and just accept that the whole thing will take time. So that's it. So that's my story of how that happened. I hope that you're able to adapt that to any situations that you're in with your dogs that might be nervous. As always, you know, if you need me for anything, you know where I am. I'm on social media, TikTok, Twitter and Instagram. I post on there on the days that so Tuesdays and Thursdays are the days that videos go up on YouTube. Then Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, I do my dog tip of the day on all of those platforms. And if you need me for anything, you can either message me on here on YouTube, or you can leave me messages on the social medias if you need any help with anything at all. Don't hesitate to ask. I love hearing from you, and I love being able to help, and I've got the knowledge and the experience, so let's use it. Let's do something good with it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have a lovely day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye bye.